Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Lang. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Lang.
Welcome to Finding Certainty, everyone. Thanks for visiting today. I'm with my good friends, Todd and Tamara Engwall of Destiny 508. Thanks for being here, guys.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Well, it's our pleasure. We're excited to hear from you and tell a little bit about your story today and what you're doing to help faith-based organizations across the country to really take back their rights, protect their liberties, constitutional liberties, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, and so forth, with what I think is probably a little known approach. I certainly wasn't aware of it till I met you two and was introduced to the process. So looking forward to the show today and sharing both your story and what you're doing to help organizations of this kind. So, I always start out our show by sharing just a couple of reasons why I invited you to be on the show. And first and foremost, I just referred to the fact that you're doing something that people need to know about. I think you have a lot of interest. We've received thousands of phone calls about it just in the last little while. What was it, over 4,000 calls asking for information? That obviously says there's some interest out there in what you're offering. Secondly, I was really inspired by your story and why you started Destiny 508. I love the backstory. I love the purpose, the mission that you've set out here on, and I think it's something that would resonate with our listeners. So, really appreciate you guys being here. I know you're on the road today. I think are you in a hotel room right now, or?
Well, we're hiding out.
We are at our daughter's house and using one of their extra rooms and to be able to be here. So yeah, we're on the road, but we brought our gear and video and audio equipment even for such a time as this. And we're blessed to be on the road and travel and meet a lot of our nonprofit leaders, ministry leaders around the country. We're traveling from Texas through California and heading up into Washington. We're in Washington right now. We have some more travel here coming up in the next month.
Right. Well, I'm a road tripper. I did my last two shows, one in the middle of the hurricane down in Orlando.
No.
Literally, we were there in Orlando as it went right over our heads. And then the next week I did a show in Virginia. We were at Liberty University talking about what we do. So I'm, it's always a little more challenging when you're trying to work on the road, or you're out of your element and so forth, but I appreciate you guys making it happen. So
Absolutely.
So let's jump into your story. I'd love to hear just a little bit about both of you, where you're from, and maybe how you met. Let's start at the very beginning, and then we'll get into a little bit of the backstory on Destiny 508. So ladies first. Tamara, you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a very proud mom of 3. We have 12 grandkids. We actually have 8 kids together. And we got 2 grandkids, 1 great grandbaby, and 1 on the way. So they are the joy of our life. And the one thing we love about the 508c1a, I'm just going to throw this in here because it's what we call a legacy asset. So we have a daughter and a granddaughter working in the company in the ministry with us. So it can carry on for generations. So we're super excited about that. So that's a big part of our life. And my background is I've been doing either nonprofit or government type of work administratively, as a mentor, as an educator for over 30 years. So this is my heart and my passion. I've tried the 508 or 501c3 route, in starting my own, and I crashed miserably at it. And my compassion for others who are starting a ministry, it motivates me to help them succeed. So that is my motivation of why we get to do what we do. And I really love seeing nonprofit leaders succeed. So that's my passion of what I do.
Yeah. Absolutely. My background, I grew up as a pastor's kid, a Baptist pastor's son in Oregon, and went to seminary myself and been in ministry. And my professional certification and degrees in project management and business analysis as well, and love that the whole process of getting projects started and businesses launched and everything. So that's what I do on our side. I help with the marketing and the training as well. But we love ministry. We love people having a framework that the church can have to go forward with a little less encumbrance than what's traditionally known as the church. Church doesn't have to be an incorporated nonprofit. It can be unincorporated, but we love what we're able to do with a simple private incorporated nonprofit with 508c1a. So that's a bit of our background.
Well, we're both pastors. We both
Yeah.
have gone to seminary and Bible college and jumped through all the hoops. But with our own ministry, we've been doing our own church now since we met in 2013. God threw us into the bucket right away to get started.
Got married,
Yeah,
got started.
and within 6 months, we started establishing our ministry, which is our church.
Mhm.
And we have a church ministry, and then we have another ministry, which is what you're talking to, Destiny 508. But we do a church online and have been pastoring that now since 2014.
We have missions outreach in India and Kenya, and planting churches, a medical center, schools. And so we do that as well as a ministry. So that's our love, and that's what we love, helping people get started as well.
Well, one of the first things that jumped out at me when I met you two, I was introduced by Pastor James, Dr. William James, good friend of ours. Was you two just seemed like two peas in a pod. I mean, you just resonate. I'm sure you have differences, and maybe you're yin and yang in ways, you have different strengths, but you just really seem to complement each other. So, I mean, let's go back and tell me how you met actually first, because you said you were thrown together. It happened quickly. And was it just love at first sight? Did you guys just hit it off right off the bat? Because I think
it was unique.
It was very unique. We'll tell you the story.
Yeah, tell us.
It was a God encounter. Only God could have done it.
We met at a church conference in 2013, at the end of 2013.
And neither one of us
had known each other.
had planned to go to that conference, but God said go. And we ended up in the overflow room where they had the gigantic screen, there wasn't even anybody up there talking. But they did, the very first night, they did a call. If you want this, come forward. God wants to impart to you, something special. And so the room of about 1,000 people just flooded forward. And I stood there and said, this is silly. But God said, do you want it? And I said, yes. So I started climbing over the chairs because I couldn't get to the front. The aisles were too full, thinking I was going to an open spot. But when I got to that open spot, it wasn't open at all. Todd was there.
I had gone up earlier and just said, Lord, I want this. I need my life changed. I need a new experience, an encounter with you, God, and just went forward. It felt like the power of God hit me. I wound up on the floor. I felt like it was like God pushed me down, and I was just on my face in front of him, and just for 45 minutes in the presence of God, sitting there. And at that time, climbing over chairs. And this open space was just me laying on the ground.
Yep. And then I'm standing, I'm standing on a rack of chairs right behind him going, oh, I guess it's not open. And anyways, the Spirit hit me and I just went down on the chairs. And then somebody came along, walking along the chairs and kicked me onto the floor. But this is the unique part. So when I was laying there, I'm like, God, what are we doing? What's up? I'm just feeling this joy in God. And I heard Father say, he said, love this man. And all I could see was this guy laying on the floor. I had no idea who he was, but I'm an intercessor. And so when God says to love somebody, it's a pretty intense assignment for me. So anyways, he said, love him. And so from that just said it for me. I didn't think he'd be my husband. He's awfully cute, but he's younger than I am. So we got up in the chairs 45 minutes later and looked at each other and we were literally not separated from that moment forward. We got married 7 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a God encounter. And I had been praying as a single woman for 3.5 years for God to bring my next husband like a good Jewish dad. I wanted him to arrange a marriage for me. And I wanted someone who's going to be a divine alliance, that we're put together for kingdom purposes, not just to meet each other's needs. And so our primary ministry is actually called Divine Alliance International Ministries. And so that's the one we do outreach to Kenya and India. And so then we have a secondary ministry called Destiny 508, which is what helps, nonprofits get started. But that was our start.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I love that word alliance, because that, I was struggling a little bit to describe you two when I met you, but that word alliance is ideal. I mean, it's perfect. And I agree. I'm a big fan of and a big proponent of what I call divine choreography, because like a choreographer in dance, they're putting their players in place, or positioning them where they want them so that the outcome is spectacular. And sounds like that's what he did. And obviously with what you're doing with your work, it's he had bigger things in mind. He needed to put you two together to make them happen. So it's obvious to anyone who knows you and anyone who knows what Destiny 508 and Divine Alliance is accomplishing. So
thank you. Yeah, we love doing that. And we see the alliance, which is connection with purpose, right? So we see these alliances happen with ministries now that we help set up. Ministry leaders come into alignment with each other and put their, all their skill set, all their ingenuity together and do a much bigger mission and do a lot bigger ministry than they could do alone. So we see a lot of that happening. We see alliances in marriages as well. We do see people get connected. We love that. So, but we also see businesses start coming together and helping expand the kingdom together, on purpose. And that's what we love. That's why we help a lot of professional business leaders as well set up their own nonprofits, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too.
And actually, that's how we found you. Was alliance through someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Well, our company, Certainty Management, provides resources and savings for businesses, nonprofit and for-profit. As you know, we're doing some things together with low-cost benefits and zero-cost fundraising and so forth. So, it's absolutely right. No man or woman is an island, right? We need to work together. We need help, because even if you're a really good pastor, you may not be a really good businessman. You may need help in these other areas. And in fact, you usually need help. I don't think it's a maybe, right?
We all do.
So, I think your story, as we get into it, is really fascinating. I think there's a lot of people who will resonate with it, because I feel the same way in my business. I'm good at certain things, but I'm not an expert at social media. I'm not a marketing expert. I don't do my own accounting and my own legal. And, you have to surround yourself with professionals and experts who are better at those things than you, if you truly want to succeed. And that's where I think your nonprofit clients are benefiting so much. So, there's a quote on your website, and let me just preface this by saying, on my show, there are different hosts do it differently. Some go into a deep bio on their guests. I prefer to not do that on my show, because I feel like it takes up time, and it's written in the description. So anyone who really wants to understand Todd and Tamara, please go read the bios, visit their website. They're very impressive. But I wanted to get into more of your story and let them meet you, obviously, hear you on the show, or maybe watch you on the YouTube that we're recording. So, but on your website, you talk about how Destiny 508 is a Christian ministry dedicated to helping believers release, and I love what you say here, the dreams, the visions, and callings that God has put on their hearts. That's a pretty big mission, because there are a lot of people out there who have missions that they feel like they need to accomplish. They have a vision for doing good, for blessing others, Christian or non. There's good Jewish organizations and Buddhist and Singh and other faiths that are seeking to do good. you obviously are a Christian organization. You're focused on evangelical and Christian outreach, but I think that anyone who's seeking to realize that calling that they feel, or to bring that mission into fruition, they struggle with two things. One, they feel driven to do it and they want to do it well, and they feel like it's something they need to do, but at the same time they're scared, they're nervous, they're feeling overwhelmed because they don't always know how to get started. And I think whether it's starting a new business or starting a ministry, it's the same. You have the same fears, you have the same overwhelm, right, that you're dealing with. And that's where you guys come into the picture, because you can take someone with that desire and lead them down the path. And not only that, but you're doing it in a way that's really unique. It's even more empowering. So let's jump into a little bit about what brought you to Destiny 508. And then we're going to take a break and come back and really dig into what you do and how you do it. But you got married in 7 weeks. That's fantastic. And when you know it's right, why wait, right?
Right.
My wife and I, we got married the same time, or in the same way, very quickly, but it was 20 years after we first met. So, but there was a marriage in between and 5 children, and and so forth. But
Yeah.
we reconnected. We felt like we were the ones that got away, and we reconnected. It was very fast. So I'm a big fan of fast weddings if it's right, but
Exactly right.
but from there, tell me a little bit about the precursor, the lead up to what you're doing today. What happened in between when you met, you got married, and before Destiny 508 was started?
Yeah. Well, we met, we were living in one house in the Puget Sound. We wound up buying just a few months later a 5-acre property that had a house and a large machine shop building on the property. And ministry is in our heart, gathering, hospitality is all that. We had we just started bringing people out together for prayer on that property.
And we ended up taking that 3,500 square foot old rundown building and made it into a ministry center with a conference center, apartment, all the things you need for that. And then we started having gatherings.
Nice.
People just came. It was amazing.
If you build it, they will come, right?
And
As
they
say.
did.
Absolutely. We ran a ministry school out of there. We would take people, on the street, show them how to pray for people, for salvation, healing. It was just amazing.
Wow. I bet you have some great memories from those times.
We do.
How long ago was that? When did that all come about?
Yeah.
We purchased the property in
2014, and then we were there until almost the end of 2015, and then God moved us to Kansas. We kept it open for another year or so with other people leading it, but it was a bit of a challenge to do that from a distance, and we were flying back and forth every month.
But the ministry still grew, and a lot of things was happening.
We just actually took it online when it ended up closing. So the brick and mortar closed, but we took it all online.
So we have online church.
Yeah. We were popular before it was popular.
Yeah, we were online church before. Yeah, that was all the rage.
That's funny. Yeah, I remember. I've been using Zoom for years, 5-6 years, maybe, before people even knew what it was. I'd say, "Well, do you want to hop on Zoom with me?" And they'd say, "Zoom, isn't that a TV show?" The old Zoom television series. But yeah. Anyway, so today everybody knows what Zoom is. So okay, so what happened next? You moved to Kansas initially. You had a job, and you're now in Texas. So how did you go from Kansas to Texas?
Wow.
We move a lot
because I was bivocational. My day job was for the electrical utility engineering industry. And so I went and helped start projects around the country. At that time, Kansas was my focus, and was building a lot of electrical substations, transmission lines. In that state, my company needed to be out there. So that's how we wound up in Kansas.
Yeah, for 2.5 years.
Yeah. And we're doing ministry out there and traveling as well. So that allowed us, just to meet a lot of amazing people and help we continued through that time, helped start, 508c1a nonprofit churches around the country.
We started doing that in about just after we got ours in 2014,
Yeah.
we started helping other people.
Interesting. Precursors of Destiny 508, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and continue the conversation. We're talking with Todd and Tamara Engwall of Destiny 508 about what they're doing to help faith-based organizations to really take back their constitutional liberties, to be able to accomplish more without the limitations that federal government can place on 501c3s, right?
Mhm.
So we'll be right back. Thanks, guys. Hold on tight.
Okay, good. We're all clear. Back in a couple minutes.
All right, we're still recording, but on our YouTube videos, we always say you get the behind the scenes look, so you hear the chit chat between the
Oh, that's fun.
between the breaks. So
Thanks for the morning.
Yeah.
yeah, you're doing great. The only thing I was going to recommend is maybe slide the camera over a little bit because it feels like Todd's kind of crammed out to the right side a little bit. I don't know if it matters. Even better. That's better. Yeah, I should have caught that before, but
Thank you.
It's always a bit of a balance trying to find where it belongs.
I mean, you're definitely the better looking half of it, Tamara. So,
Yeah.
focus
I
on you
know.
wasn't necessarily a bad thing.
Oh, I know. I disagree.
Yeah.
Although Todd's pretty good looking guy,
Yes, he is.
Anybody ever tell you looked a little like Kenny Rogers? You probably heard that before.
I have heard that, yes. But I can't sing though.
No,
No, no.
a gambler.
Can too. I think you sing just as good.
I sing in the shower.
He used to be our worship leader at our church, so don't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
a
That's
little
good.
modest
I
there.
can play guitar a little bit.
Yeah,
So so when we get back, I think we'll jump into what took you from Kansas to Texas,
okay.
how the whole Destiny 508 thing started, or do you want to talk a little bit more about the Divine Alliance first? So is that in between the two, or?
So Divine Alliance continues on.
It started in
and-
2014. That was our first ministry.
Mhm.
It's our
Okay.
primary church. Destiny 508 is what we call an auxiliary 508. So it's only able to be in existence while the main church is in existence. So
Gotcha.
we do a lot of outreach with Destiny more than anything else.
Mhm.
Or
And then-
Divine Alliance, I'm sorry.
Divine Alliance. And then our outreach in Kenya continues to grow. Our one of my best friends in ministry is Kenyan, and he spends half his year in Kenya and plants churches. So that's what he's doing there now. We have a church, we've got a school, a seminary, and a
Nice.
school there that we're starting. And
All
then
established since January of 2021. So it's been
Wow.
a lot of salvations, a lot of baptisms, even some marriages, lots of child dedications,
some
and in
three-
villages that didn't have Jesus. So it's been amazing.
and then
amazing
from
story.
that church, he started 2 other churches. So there's 3 churches being planted.
Nice.
All right, so sorry to interrupt, but we are coming back.
All right.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Finding Certainty. Our special guests today are Todd and Tamara Engwall of Divine Alliance and Destiny 508. And we're talking about their story, about how they came from the Pacific Northwest to Kansas to Texas, maybe a few stops in between, but it's been a journey, hasn't it, guys?
It has
It
been.
really has. It really has. We're telling about my time in Kansas. We were out there almost 3 years and ministering in a local church as well as support ministers there, and plus running our Divine Alliance ministry and doing outreach in Kenya. And it was starting back then. And we have a real good friend. He's our missions director, Pastor Samuel Kyoko. He also pastors a church in South Carolina. He came to the U.S. 20 years ago, got his seminary training, and then is now planting churches in Kenya. So we have 3 church plants. We were talking a little bit at the break that we've got started there. We've got seminary started, children's school started. We're just getting we've got the plans drawn up for the medical clinic. They are over an hour from medical help, and the babies are born in the homes, and there's no sanitation. And people are dying and getting sick unnecessarily because there's no medical facility. So we're building that there as well. In fact, we just had our first 5 truckloads of block delivered there, and for the medical clinic. So that's so it's going to be a 2-story clinic. We've got a local Kenyan architect drawing up the plans already, and those are beautiful. So we're doing that outreach there. Kenya's really taken off.
Yeah, and we're still working on saving money to dig a well there. There's no well in the village.
Yeah.
So we're currently having to pay for water to be trucked in, which is was fun when they built the baptismal, and their baptismal is like a work of art.
Yeah.
So to fill that thing up took quite a few truckloads, but
it's its own building, actually.
Its own little structure. It's really amazing what they do. Culture, but it's beautiful. We love what we get to do there to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
I bet. I've been able to do some mission work in my life, spent a couple of years as a full-time missionary. And I think when you get the opportunity to serve in that way, where you're looking outward, we spend so much of our time focused on our job, our business, our family. But when you do ministry or you do mission work and are focused outward, most people will say it was the best experience of their life, the best 2 years, the best summer, whatever it was. And I think it's because when we are focused outward, everything changes. Our priorities change, our heart changes. It's hard to explain until you've really experienced it, but it is absolutely a transformational event. So, okay, well, I'm really interested. I'm really enjoying your story, guys. You mentioned just briefly, Tamara, that your passion project, your first 501c3, it didn't work, right? And that's a precursor to why you started Destiny 508, because you didn't want anyone else to have to go through that. There's so many great missions out there, and just really good pastors and others that want to do good, but they need help, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about what you learned from that failure, and then we get into how you're helping fix it? Or should we just jump right into what you're doing as Destiny 508?
Yeah, just a bit of a background. I was a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration car seat safety technician trainer. I traveled the country training people about that. And so I stepped out of that and went into starting my own nonprofit doing that, helping people get their car seats in, knowing that I was making a difference. It was the #1 way kids were dying at the time. There's just a lot of passion in doing that. And what I discovered, though, is the administration of being a 501c3 using grant money was so burdensome. I couldn't do what I love to do. I had to train and hire and have other people do that work. And it sucked my passion out of me. And at the end of the day, at the end of 5 years of doing that, I was drained. I was burned out. It wasn't my, I was so broken. I felt like I failed in every way. It was really one of the lowest points of my life, but professionally and internally. But what I did is I wallowed for a while. But what I did is I went back to college. I went to college and I got a degree in leadership and ministry, so that I would know how to administrate something like that and how to work better in a ministry, because I called it a ministry. And so from that, when God called us into doing the 508s, doing it full time, helping ministries get started, what drove me passionately was I don't want anybody else to fail like that. And I failed from lack of knowledge. So if we can help people get the knowledge that they need to succeed at ministry leadership, wow, that is that puts them so much further down the road to success, because you can have a great heart with amazing passion, but if you don't know how to administer that, we love Miles Monroe, and Miles Monroe talks a lot about being an administrator in the kingdom.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what we're helping people do. Step into that place of dominion over what God has given to them and administrate it well, so that the kingdom can advance here on earth
Yeah.
the way God intended.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have, so that's why we do so much business management training.
Right.
A nonprofit is a business, it's just taxed differently. You still have to use good business principles. And that's why makes us different than any other kind of registering agent. We actually train, we give the business fundamentals. We teach people how to write their bylaws, how to get things set up, how to do ordination, the benefits, and how to do the marketing for the ministry, how to get the word out about the good that you're actually doing. In fact, it pushed us into starting our own software. So we have our own website and funnel and CRM builder that we got with some developers to help our nonprofit and ministry leaders and the businesses that support them have an online presence, because they weren't being found. We were struggling. We've been doing this 8 years now. And we were telling our nonprofit leaders to go get your website built, get online, get a donate button on there so people can help you. And they just weren't doing it. So our passion to help people have the resources, have the training, this comes from a lot of failure. So thanks for asking. Thanks for bringing up a sore subject. Just kidding. No, but really, it's just like, come on, we gotta help solve these things. And what she struggled with the lack of education on that, we want to save some people some pain. So that's why she's an amazing trainer and teacher and educator. So we both love doing that.
Right. So for any of you listeners out there who are following along and enjoying this story, I want to be clear what Destiny 508 does. They are an organization that helps faith-based churches, outreaches, everything from homeless shelters to food kitchens to et cetera. They have to be tied to a church, which Todd and Tamara can help them set up. There's a lot of flexibility in an expression of church, a lot of different definitions. It can be online, it can be brick and mortar, it can have multiple purposes. And I'll have you guys maybe talk about that for a minute, but they've created this company, this outreach of their church that helps others to either establish a church, to start that outreach. Maybe it's an existing church who's under a 501c3 right now, but they want to switch over to a 508c1a, which we're going to talk about what the difference is. But but not only are you helping people either do the setup or make the transition, but as you were saying, Todd, you're providing all these other resources, the training, the technology, the connections, the access, et cetera, so they can actually be successful, right? You're not just selling a business in a box and saying, good luck. I mean, this is a ministry. You are in the trenches with them, right? I know, because I've seen you in action, but so let's talk first about this definition of a church, because I know there's a wide range of different types of organizations who are benefiting from your assistance. And then let's get into the 501c3 versus the 508c1a. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the difference between the two. So talk about the church first, and really the focus of what you do and how it applies to a lot of different reasons. I mean, just on your website, it talks about women's ministry, men's ministry, Bible study, youth groups, and church and marriage, and the list goes on and on, right? So
absolutely. And like we said, both of us are seminary trained as well, and we've been ordained multiple times, as well as our own ministries ordained us. So we understand big church. But if you start looking at the New Testament, when Jesus established the church, Jesus was leading and meeting people's spiritual and physical needs in gatherings. He didn't carry 4 walls in his steeple. So many of our clients and the people that we help are ministries that look a little more like Jesus, look in the way of the formation. When you look at it, it's like, okay, they're not doing maybe so much of the Sunday worship, and they've got a building, but they're doing some of the gathering, but they're also helping people with practical needs and practical help, and loving, letting the love of the Father flow through them in real tangible ways. And that's who introduced us to the 508, was a nonprofit ministry that was ministering on the streets, and they were bringing food to the homeless, and they would bring clothing, and they would pray and just take care of their spiritual needs there out in the open, out in the streets. So it's very interesting. So there's a lot of different looks that the church has, a lot of faces of the church. So the 508 is for the church. It's a mandatory exception for the church, and allows us to operate in a lot of different ways. You want to say something?
Yeah, dozens of different ways that people can serve. And I say in the trenches, but I'm a veteran, so I guess I think of military terms, but it's all about making a difference, right? We started this radio show, Finding Certainty. And I've told this story before, but when they asked me what I wanted my show to be about, I said, first, we need to be willing to evolve. We need to be willing to change as a business. And I completely agree with you, Todd. The only difference between a for-profit and nonprofit is the word non. You still have to pay bills. You have to market yourself. You have to deal with accountants and attorneys and everything else, right? But so I said, we need to, if we want to truly find certainty in our lives and our businesses, we need to be willing to change and think outside the box, and consider new relationships, new technologies, and new approaches. And that 508c1a is definitely that, right? But I said the other side of it is we need to work together.
Right.
There's too much division in the country. There's you vote different than I vote, or I go to church here, you go to church there. And I said, for us to truly make a difference, to truly create certainty in our nation, we need to work together. We need to serve together, even if we differ. We have a lot more in common than we have differences, right? We both want nonprofits to succeed. We both want business to be strong. We want our kids safe at school, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got a couple more minutes before our next break, but which one of you want to define what the 508c1a does that a 501c3 does not? Because it's a very important distinction.
It is an important distinction from the perspective of the 508c1a is a mandatory exception to a 501c3. And it's only for those that are churches, auxiliary of churches, convention associations of churches. So basically, if you have a church or a faith-based organization, whether it's a big full-blown denomination like the Catholic Church, or it's just a small mom and pop kind of store, or you're meeting people in your living room, or you're just doing outreach, it doesn't matter. That's the designation that was meant to be for a church in 1969 that was passed into law. So it's part of the Internal Revenue Code. That's what the numbers mean. It's an Internal Revenue Code. So the 501c3 came into practice for churches in 1950s for political purposes. It was a completely political move that happened, that churches got put underneath that. So, and it was for the purpose of someone who was running for president who didn't want churches or his opponent going to churches and speaking out against him. So he passed a law that put churches underneath the 501c3 rules that said they cannot talk. They signed away their rights to freedom of speech, their First Amendment rights. So that's one of the biggest differences between the two, is the 508 gives you back your rights to freedom of speech. It gives you back your freedom of religion, everything of all First Amendment rights, constitutional rights come back to you as a 508c1a.
See, that's no small statement. I mean, I think most people would be surprised to hear that as a 501c3, you've lost those rights. I think most people don't even realize that unless they're a pastor or a church leader dealing with it, right? Just the general public. I think that's a shocking truth to even be aware of, or to have made manifest. So it's a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal. And part of it, when you become a 501c3, the jurisdiction of law, you're underneath the federal government. You have to have approval from the federal government to be in existence. A lot of people don't understand that either. So with the 508c1a, It's just by application. Nobody can tell you can or cannot have a church.
At the state level.
It's at a state
You're
level.
filed as an incorporated nonprofit at a state level. You can certainly be a church unincorporated, but if you choose to be incorporated and have a corporate veil, just another layer of protection, you're
Mhm.
filed at the state level. So the highest law in the land is Constitution, next highest law is state law, and the lowest is the federal law. So
People
Right.
don't know that either.
filed at the state
Yeah,
level. So
Very
it's
interesting.
very powerful.
yeah.
Well, we're going to go to break again, guys. And I'm very interested by this conversation. We'll come back. We're visiting with Todd and Tamara Engwall of Destiny 508. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
All right, good. We're all clear. Back in a couple.
All right. Thanks, Matt. All right. We've got about 10 more minutes after we get back from the break, maybe give or take. So
Okay.
I think we get into a little more of these benefits of 508c1a, and let's drill down on the
Mhm.
the liberties and what that means. I mean, how does that affect a church? And get into some of the I think I'd like to talk about the different client types you work with. We talked about that, and maybe some of the drawbacks of 508c1a. So why don't we talk about what are the benefits, some of the drawbacks, and then we'll talk about the different client types, and
Okay.
end up with a shout out to your website. And
Yeah, and I had a quick
Cool.
question on the what you want us to end with. We've created a way for people just to text us the word voice,
Yeah.
and they'll get our ebook. Did
Great.
you wanna
Yeah,
do
no,
something like that?
I'll ask you to say how can they get a hold of you, and just mention the website and mention that. That's no problem.
Okay, and I'll
Yeah.
in our little Zoom, I can put the phone number that they text to. I'll just do
Yeah.
that.
That's great. I can actually go in and put it in that in the description for the radio show too, so they'll
Oh, great.
see that if you want. Yeah, it's I really meant it though, and I think it's something that there's so much misinformation and just ignorance in America, so much driven by the media and so forth. But I think a lot of people out there have no idea how the churches are shackled and they're hamstrung by the 501c3 restrictions, right?
Mhm.
It's I think it's pretty shocking to be honest. So
And some churches will go and sign and apply for a federal 501c3 themselves and get a letter of determination signing away their right. They think they have to go sign up. Churches are already, without any designation, a tax exempt entity, and can receive tax deductible donations based on the law, that we have on our
right. Right.
6033.
All right, we are just about to come back. Stand by.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
You're listening to Finding Certainty, and I'm with my special guest, Todd and Tamara Engwall of Destiny 508. We're discussing the differences between a 501c3 and a 508c1a, and the really extraordinary benefits. They're simple, but they're powerful between the two. I wanted to just make a quick plug for your business services, though, Todd. You talked about how you provide marketing services and business services to help your clients succeed as a faith-based organization, whatever their mission is, whatever their focus, you're helping them succeed. You're not just setting them up and leaving them.
Mhm.
But before they even get into that, before they even can focus on marketing and so forth and so on. I love how you say that, by you helping them in those areas, it allows them time to be freed up to do what's really in their hearts, right? It's like a dentist who's really good at dentistry. And if he doesn't have to focus on the business side, he can do better dental work, or a contractor who's a roofer or something can focus on what he's really good at if someone else is dealing with the business headaches and marketing and so forth. You do the same thing for faith-based organizations. I think that's really important, but they really need to be set up right first.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised that more people aren't aware of this discrepancy between the two. I mean, it seems to me that every church out there, every ministry should be a 508c1a. There's no reason for them not to. The only reason maybe they aren't is they don't know about it. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I had grown up in a pastor's home. I had been in seminary. I'd never heard of another designation for a church. There's multiple ways a church could have, register as a nonprofit. A lot of people don't know there's over 20 different types of nonprofit tax codes. And there's 502s, there's different 501s, 509. We do a 508 for the church, specifically for the church. So we love that mandatory exception for the church.
Right. Talk more about that. What are the exceptions you're referring to? What are the benefits of the 508c1a? We talked a little bit about how it gives them the right to freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, freedom of religion. I mean, those are big those are big freedoms, right? We're talking major constitutional liberties that have been squelched or they've been handcuffed by being a 501c3. I think oftentimes without even realizing it. Is that a fair statement?
It is. And some churches will even do the quarterly reporting or annual reporting and have to do that as a 501. They think that's what's needed. But under 508, you're just saying, I'm recognized that I am a church. I'm exempt from that reporting. So your books are closed as a 508. You're still doing best practices as a nonprofit business and, before your board and the congregation that you're leading. But it saves you time from all those reporting requirements. You don't have to have the staff for that now. If you're just a church, being recognized under the 508c1a saves you time, and you have more time for the mission.
Right. Well, 501c3 is definitely, I think, the most recognizable. It's most common. What everybody thinks of when you think of a nonprofit is a 501c3. But that's not necessarily the best option. Now, to be a church, they don't have to have brick and mortar. They don't have to have four walls. It can be online. It can be virtual. It can be in a home. They don't have to even have a clearly defined Sunday service, right? It's a very broad definition, which I think is important as people are considering ministries. I want to talk to that point for just a minute, and then let's get into a little bit more about some of the benefits.
Yeah, so the church is, like you said, there isn't a real structure. Even in the federal government, there isn't necessarily a definition for church because there's so many expressions of faith that they can't say one way is the right way. But what churches can do, we call it church overall broadly. That's a term we use. But it's really any faith-based organization. If you have a heart and a mission and a drive to serve the world based on your faith, looking like a church or meeting a qualification for a church is super easy to do. You gather together with a group of people, no matter how small or large, and you do it based on your communal faith. Great, you're a church. Now go out and do good. I mean, we've heard some amazing stories of what people do with their good. And just the diversity we're always hearing something new. Like there's one, for example, in an inner city, I think it's Chicago, in an inner city, they're getting old broken down warehouses and turning them into agroponic farms so that the inner city can have fresh fruits and vegetables.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
So this church is doing incredible work. They certainly have their gatherings, but they're 24/7, outside of the four walls kind of thing, is doing a lot of this outreach, a lot of this work, and helping the community.
It's amazing what people have on their hearts to do and the diversity of that. So being a 508c1a allows you the covering to do that. And you mentioned something that I want to just, point to right now is that the 508c1a came into play in the 1969s because legislation went forward saying The 501c3 is basically for a church is unconstitutional. We've got to bring them back.
Hmm.
So they made the 508 option exception there. So the challenge is that the 501 had already been in play for 15 years,
Mhm.
3 cycles of bringing in a president. And I think the government and politicians really liked it because the churches couldn't talk about them. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing that we already have built into our country. We've already got the freedom. So let's make full use of that.
Yeah.
Right. I love that they recognize that it was not constitutional and it needed to be fixed, and Congress actually fixed it. So that's fantastic. Any other benefits of 508c1as that you just want to throw out real quick?
Yeah, one of my favorite, and I mentioned it earlier when I was telling a little bit about our story, is that it's what we call a legacy asset. As the person who is the founding director of a 508c1a, you're part of the board. You're actually the president of the board. Whether you're the pastor of the church or not is not the question, but that 508c1a, you cannot be removed from that board of directors. It's yours in perpetuity, which with a 501c3, it doesn't matter who starts that organization. The board has whole 100% control and can remove that person at any time. With
Wow.
a 508c1a, that's not possible. So you can pass it down to family members if you want to, or to whomever you want to pass it to. It can go on and on.
You can have family members on your board as well.
You can have family members on your board. With a 501, you're not supposed to.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love 2 words. I love the word kingdom and I love the word legacy. And so you are striking chords with me for sure. So real quick, are there any downsides to 508c1as?
Yeah, I think the number one downside that I don't know that it's a downside, it's just a reality of it. With the 501c3, it's a lot easier to get grant money if that's what you want to do. It's the only way you can get grant money. Federal grant, or there's ways to do it, but it's really not easy to get any kind of grants with a 508c1a. Now you can get private grants or foundation money or things like that.
Corporate grants.
But it's not as easy because they can't check up on you. You're a non-reporting entity. You don't file anything with the federal government other than to get an EIN number. So that means the grantors can't go looking for you to verify that you are using your money well, or that you're legitimate or whatever. So that is one of if people want grants, they need to go to be a 501c3, and we encourage them to be humanitarian or social based, not religious based.
Yeah. When a lot of ministries start, we'll tell them, do the simple 508, start your nonprofit as a private nonprofit with a 508. And then if you do need to get federal grant money and you're doing some good things, just like, you know, there's one of the Dream Centers is one of our clients, and they've done that. They have a 501c3, get $1 million grants. They have the 508. They're able to do the pastoral and the ministry work, the life transformation work, and they're able to benefit from that. So there is a place for the 501c3, but just as humanitarian, there's just a lot of pushback under the religious nonprofit or the church being under 501c3. So we're just trying to let the church know that, you know, set your ministry up under the 508, recognizing the 508, be a church organization and get that simplified starting out. And that helps people get their name out there in the marketplace, in the world, and they can, you know, make an impact quickly, a lot more quickly with the 508.
Well, you know, we've talked about how challenging it is to raise funds for nonprofits. You know, Certainty Management, we have a 0 cost fundraising option for nonprofits, and really you have to either sell something, ask for donations, or go get grants, and they're all difficult, right?
Yeah.
They're all exhausting. You talked about being burned out when you were trying to do your child, you know, safety seat business or organization. So just in closing, we're coming up on the end, but who is reaching out to you? You're getting these thousands of calls of people, and you've set up hundreds of organizations to do exactly this, and you've really streamlined this program. You provide ongoing support. The list goes on and on. But I know there's different kinds of groups or categories that are reaching out to you. Do you mind just sharing that before we close here?
Sure. We have a lot of different faith-based people coming, not just all Christians, but a lot of people reach out and want this. But a lot of them are individuals with that dream, that vision that calling on their life, and they're just like, okay, now's the time. God's pressing me to do this. I have to figure out how to do this. And so they come to us and go, God told me I can't be a 501c3, but I didn't know there's an option. So we get a lot of individuals who do that, who have a heart and a passion. The other group that we get are churches who want to get their freedoms back. So in all sizes, small to some of the mega churches, that we've worked with. We also have an interesting growing clientele.
So we have some high net worth professionals,
Mhm.
business leaders that are saying, hey, I want to be able to donate to a nonprofit. Can I start my own and hire a pastor or a leader to be able to take that nonprofit and run with it? They've actually done that, and they're able to get a tax benefit as well by funding their own nonprofit. So we get a lot of professionals and business leaders reach out to us. And you know what? There was a fourth one that I thought of the other day.
Yeah.
That come to us. We get calls from pastors who are in a denomination, a 501c3 denomination, but they have their own personal calling and something that they want to reach out with. And they say, can I start my own personal ministry, on the side? I just want to go downtown. Our church doesn't have the staff. We have enough staff to do the Sunday services, etc., but we don't have staff and an organization to get downtown and help the homeless. They start ministries like that or help broken marriages. We see a lot of that as well. So it's a lot of fun that way.
Right. I'm sure it's a split between people wanting to start and existing churches who want to get their freedoms back, and are dealing with where a morality issue is a political issue, and they want to be able to speak about things that are important to them. And so we are up against our time clock, but I've really enjoyed hearing what you guys do. I was aware of it already. We've got to know each other a little bit, but coming to understand it a little bit better. I think anyone out there, any of you listeners who have had something on your heart that you'd like to implement, you'd like to expand, or you're a church who wants more flexibility and more empowerment, please reach out to Todd and Tamara. Do you guys mind sharing just how they can get a hold of you real quick?
The easiest way is just to text us at 253-264-0508. Text the word voice, and we'll send you our ebook on the 508 and a little bonus, and we'll be in touch there and give you a way to book a call with us. If you just want a quick appointment, we can certainly talk with you there as well.
Or you can find us on our website at destiny508.com.
All right. Thanks, guys. Any questions on the show? You can text the word certainty to 26786. So thanks for listening in. Todd and Tamara, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you guys, and best of luck. Continue the work. It's so important, and we support you 100%. You've been listening to Finding Certainty. Next week, we have a really extraordinary show highlighting what a group called Ward Holdings is doing to help Africa empower its farmers, its importers, its citizens to bring food into America at lower costs, but also empowering the people of Africa. I'm very excited about this show. We're going to be interviewing multiple people during this show, together with my co-host, Frank Hellring of Business Buzz. We are out of time. Thanks for being on Finding Certainty, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, good job. We're all clear.
Thanks, Matt. Sorry we went over a minute or two.
Yep, no worries. All right, thanks. Have a good weekend.
Take
All right,
care.
bye-bye.
All right, we're still recording, guys. If there's anything we didn't miss, or anything we missed or didn't include that you want to tell, this is your chance.
Oh, that's great. That was sure fun. We love just sharing the news, what we've discovered with others, and man, if we can serve your community, let us know. Anything beyond this, we could talk for hours about this.
And we do normally.
And we do. So yeah, that was awesome. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I was just going to say the best thing to do is to go to your website, watch it's about a 20-minute video. It really explains the process. I've watched it a couple of times. It's very detailed. It is an absolute no-brainer, in my opinion, that a faith-based organization should be a 508c1a, unless they're currently getting massive federal grants, which most of them aren't, right?
They're not,
to be
yeah.
honest. You know, like I said, I think it's a no-brainer to consider it. And if you're going to do it, they should reach out to you for sure. Not try to have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things that we probably didn't talk about or focus on was that we are a registering agent. It literally takes less than 2 weeks to get your nonprofit started. And then after that, you can come into the education portion of what we do. But it's, yeah, we do, it's a full service, you know, just 15 minutes of you filling out paperwork, and that's all you're required to do. And then you can step right into getting a nonprofit in 2 weeks.
So one question I have is, because we've actually considered starting a nonprofit, we decided to go the route instead of helping, you know, multiple nonprofits with their biggest need, which is funding, you know, using what we're good at to help hopefully raise money for them. And there's several ways we do that. But one of the reasons I personally shied away from starting a nonprofit was I have heard that the administration and the taxes and the just the reporting and everything is a nightmare. Owning a nonprofit, is it simpler as a 508c1a? Is it different?
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Hugely simpler. It's a non-reporting. So what makes a burden for a 501c3 is the government reporting side. So, but 508c1as have no government reporting at all. You don't do taxes, you don't file taxes, you don't, I mean, you keep good bookkeeping, but you don't, their books are closed. With a 501c3, people can walk in off the street, ask to see your books, and you're required to show them. But with a 508, you don't have to. So it's hugely, I mean, part of why we do this is let's get you up and going. Our training is get everything done you need to do for the foundation within 3 to 6 months, and then just go do good. The foundation's done. So that's what we focus on, helping people get done, is that get that foundation out there, get it done.
Wow. Well, makes me want to go start a nonprofit. Yeah, probably
that a lot.
Well, appreciate you guys. I'm excited about what you're doing, and I just think it's really important. You know, kingdom and legacy, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick, for inviting us. This has been great. It's been fun. I always love having conversations with you.
And we love your products too. We're getting ready to get that. We just got an email.
Just got an email.
So we're looking forward to all the benefits that we're giving to our members. So thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, the show will go live. It's already been live. So any listeners were listening heard it live, but then it will be posted on Voice America within the next hour or two. As soon as it does, I'll send you the link and the
that'd be great.
card. You can attach it on your website, put it on your social media, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, once it's done, it's uploaded to multiple different podcast channels. And remind me, I'll introduce you to Robert Cholino. I think that your story, what you're doing, and just how important it is, I think you guys would make really good hosts on Voice America. I mean, commitment, because you got to do it every week and you got to prepare for it. And but it's funny, when I first started out, I'd take all this time and write out all my questions, and I was, you know, brand new, and I wanted it really organized. Robert said, the more preparation you have, the better your show will go. And I got to the point where, out of necessity, just because I'm so busy, I had to cut back and cut back and cut back. And now I don't write out any questions. You know, we did do a little pre-show and kind of talk about the direction we want to go, but I actually think my shows are better now because they're just really natural. You know, it's a conversation. I don't stress about it, and I don't have to spend 6 hours getting ready for it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, that'd be my bit of advice if you do consider going that route. Don't stress about it. It's just a conversation.
That's
yeah,
great.
thank you. We would love the introduction, though, just to see what God wants to do with that as potential.
Yeah, it's a great platform for getting your message out and controlling the message, because you choose your guests and you choose the topics, and you can be as political as you want or not, as religious as you want or not. There's no restriction, you know, as long as you're not, you know, insulting people, I guess. But or throwing out racial slurs or anything like that, which I know you wouldn't do, but it's pretty wide open. The reason we were intrigued when I was invited was, one, we felt like we could control the message, and two, we could get our message out, and which is good thing. And out of it, we've received a lot of notoriety and a lot of introductions we wouldn't have otherwise gotten. I mean, there's hundreds of hosts on Voice America, and it's broadcast to millions of people. And so it's a really huge opportunity. They don't bring new hosts on very often, but I know he said they're open to considering a few right now.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
So-
we'll have to
Yeah.
check it out, see if we have the bandwidth, and we'll pray about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for being on, and I'll get you the live or the link to the broadcast, and then also the YouTube link as soon as it's done being processed. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Patrick.
much.
This
you're
is awesome.
most welcome. Safe travels. I know you're up in Washington right now, so enjoy the Northwest. I was in Oregon for 12 years, and it's one of the prettiest places on earth.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is. We were just
absolutely.
in Bend, what, 2 weeks ago, a week
Yeah.
ago, and it was gorgeous there. But yeah.
Perfect. The leaves
Yeah.
are turning, so beautiful.
Yeah, you should have stopped by and said hi to Ken York. That's where he lives, the owner of Life Access.
We didn't realize that. Well, we were there, we were stuck there because I was so sick. So
So yeah,
I didn't want to meet him.
yeah,
Couldn't quite,
no. But yeah, thank you.
next time through though, for sure.
Yeah, sure. He'd love to see you, I'm sure. You
That'd
guys
be
are
great.
customers of his, and he's an amazing guy. So
Yeah, he's a great guy.
all right, thanks, guys. Well, have a good day, and thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
too.
Blessings to you.
You as well. I'll talk to you
Bye.
later.
Bye-bye.